Hi, I'm gonna be talking about something that's kind of interesting that came up in my life recently. Okay, so requires kind of a background story. Um, my mom, when I was like an infant before I can remember myself, my mom met another woman who had also a baby boy infant who was my age. Her So my mom became friends with this woman, and she had this baby boy. I guess it doesn't hurt to say his name. His name is Nick. Nick was born 18 days before me. So, because our mothers were friends, we kind of grew up together. And as a child, your social interaction, well, maybe not everyone, but my social interaction, and I can't say that it was a good thing, uh, developed strictly in the context of public education and the public education system. So Nick was kind of an escape from that. It was like we were kind of special friends because special friends because that limitation of kind of like if you fuck up in the public school system, that stays with you because you're fucking stuck at that school. And if you fuck up, that shit will linger with you because you're like this image, and if you get a black mark on your social image, it stays there because you're in this with the same group of kids. So Nick and I kind of, because we weren't in the same public school system, we were both kind of like each other's, almost like we mirrored to one another our secret minds. Like every the person that we wanted to be at with our friends in the public school system, we tested that kind of shit out with one another. Because if I fuck up with Nick and something bad happens, it's like it doesn't really matter in a way because it's just Nick, and it's not like Nick has any bearing on my real life in the public school system. He's just kind of like this testing ground that I have. So that also wasn't cool because a lot of like competition and inferiority crap that we developed at school then came out with one another when we were kind of like set loose in this free training ground where there were no consequences for our actions with one another. So there was like lots of competition between him and me, lots of judgment and that kind of bullshit. So that's interesting. And we kind of went our separate ways, and Nick fucked up his life and got into drugs and shit, and I didn't. So I kind of a while back decided that Nick had no more purpose in my life, that he'd become like this socialite in a way, like about uh, being a man and being a successful social male and being more concerned with that than he was with himself or with me. So not cool. So um, no Nick in my life, none of that. um, so what Nick will do is when he doesn't have anybody else, when his social life in the system has slowed down or collapsed, he'll come to me. And that's actually what's happening right now, because I pretty sternly cut him out of my life a while back because he was competing with me, and I just didn't let that in for obvious reasons. And so he's contacted me again and apologized for his earlier behavior, and we've gone through this dynamic more than once where he'll become abusive towards me in a way, and then will apologize for it and feel guilty about it, and then kind of like come back and want to make it up. But that's like valid, that observation that, you know, I fucked up and I've been an asshole. That's valid. So I'm going to give him another shot. And I'm going to meet up with him, and I'm going to really communicate with him about these points and about the development of our relationship in ways that I have never had that I've been afraid of doing, because what will he think about me? I'll look womanish and sensitive, but I mean, that's kind of totally irrelevant because these points are actually what's happening, so I'm just gonna, I guess, address reality with Nick for the first time. And from my perspective, it's cool because from that point of being aware that abuse has been allowed, it's possible to agree that between him and me that these forms of abuse are unacceptable, and from that agreement be able to work together to identify these points of abuse and invalidate them and together stop them, and then have a point of actual support in the system, which is very useful. So I have actually made a list of talking points for me and Nick. He's kind of like hooked up with his parents' money and with effective computer skills, so there's a couple points on computer software stuff that I would like to see if he and I can't do together in conjunction with my life, with what I'm doing in my life right now. Also, I'm going to talk about our past and this specific point where we believed that our relationship was special. And that's that point of secrecy that almost like when we can like believing that we're allowed to get away with bullshit with each other. Kind of like that, like he'll always keep my secrets and I'll always keep his secrets because both of us know that the other one knows things about who he is and who I am, that if that was to come out in our real social lives, that it would not be, it would disintegrate our our self-image, ego, reputation hologram. So you know, let's get together and have like this secret friendship, and then be able to like lick all of our insecurities and nurse our egos back to help one another, and then keep it a secret and not tell anyone else that we did that shit together. And it's bullshit because our relationship hasn't been special. It's just been another part of the overall fucked up life situation that both of us have grown up in. So yes, I didn't write down actually the I did, but I didn't write it down like really directly enough. I'm gonna write down the kind of blatant abuse that has existed between us, and um, specifically from him towards me, also from me towards him on occasion, but not nearly as much. And that's not like I'm a better person thing at all. That's just the way it worked out. So blatant abuse, and then also apologizing, and also bringing up that we've gone through this point before, where like in the past he would hit me or like scream at me and then like apologize, and I would like be afraid of like really coming out with him being like, that really, really hurt my feelings, and you know, like admitting how much it like hurt me that he would do that to me. So just being like, oh yeah, it's fine, whatever, just forget about it. Apologizing and then point repetition. Don't forget about that. So also, not really a problem for us to do like some catching up and like, well, this is where I left you in your life back then. What's happened since that, and this is where you left me, and that's what like catching up. That just kind of like whatever. And then, oh yeah, okay. So that point of agreeing to stop abuse and taking the point that, well, we kind of already are under each other's skin and are pretty aware that there's some bullshit going on both of our parts, and being able to uh, take this kind of fucked up secrecy point and being like, okay, so shame and ego is really irrelevant here. Let's get serious about what's going on, and um, stop playing pretend with each other and stop playing these fucking games and just let it all go and get real with each other. So that's like more possible here because of that, which is, you wouldn't think that that would be uh, like a cool thing, but that we had like that secret friendship kind of a thing. You wouldn't think that that would be like cool, but it kind of is in that perspective that it can so easily um, be opened up into a point of self-understanding. Yes, so how we turn this secret ego, you lick my wounds and I'll lick your wounds kind of relationship into a point of practical life support is like, it's useful to like know people, it's useful to have like people that you can trust to a degree in your life system. uh, so I'm kind of working on that right now, is like reestablishing connections with some of my old friends from school, and testing these points out to see, yeah, I guess like who can stand with me and who's not going to stand with me. So I'm gonna give Nick a shot, just like I'm giving my other old pals a shot, because it's cool to have that point, like I was saying, of uh, practical life support based on some basic common sense points of trust. And I kind of developed a judgment after working with Destiny material for so long that if people didn't study the Destiny material, then they're kind of like inferior human beings and are to be completely disregarded. But that's just like, that's not an accurate assessment. That's just me being uh, insecure and judgmental. Because everyone is able to understand common sense. And if those common sense points can be clarified together into basic points of trust, just that basic point of trust and understanding of uh, basic common sense points within the context of social relations, is very useful in this system. It's useful to know people and have people that you know. Yeah, so there's that, yeah, blah, 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 blah. So, yes, I'm going to be presenting this to him in the context of, like, a practical relationship, like, well, like, let's get serious about our lives. These are my long-term goals. This is what I'm doing with my life. Because we've known each other for fucking ever, so, uh, our interactions don't have to be, it's like, we can kind of, like, look at each other's life development and be like, okay, this is how it's worked from the start, and this is where you want to go with it, and then have kind of like that real like broad scope of like a feedback point where it's like, so meaning long-term goals, like establishing long-term goals with one another that we can then practically support each other with, just like just like boring life system shit, like I need a ride to this place on this day, can you help me out, or stuff like that. Like, yeah, because also uh, my family is not very trustworthy. I mean, they're useful in a way, but it's like there's really only so much that I can do with my family, or that I can uh, consistently rely on them for. So um, I don't see why I would not also establish useful relationships that are stable where possible in the system. So that's what I'm doing. I made this video to kind of start talking about Nick and only Nick, but I actually have, incidentally, it seems, begun this testing phase, testing out my old friends with other people. And it already hasn't turned out like I expected. So I guess I can talk more about this friends point. Cool.